8-year-old boys were caught by police last night trying to light a fire near Newcastle. Worryingly, they're just the latest in a string of young people to get in trouble for starting fires throughout the crisis in New South Wales.
Arson, the deliberate act of setting fires with the intent to harm or destroy. The very idea that someone would intentionally risk harming so many is beyond comprehension. Yet there have been 5 arrests in relation to New South Wales bushfire crisis, all with one shocking thing in common.
It's very disturbing, all of the arrests that we have made with regards to arson attack since this current crisis has been with us have been young people.
One child, a boy aged 11, has been charged with lighting a fire near Newcastle last week that destroyed several buildings and burnt out 5,000 hectares of bushland.
So there's a lot of fires that are deliberately lit each year, and a lot of those are lit by juveniles.
Experts believe that fire behaviour in children follows a natural sequence. Between the ages of 3 and 5 comes fire interest. This is a natural, healthy curiosity about fire and how it works. Then comes fire starting, when children experiment with ignition sources like matches and lighters. The majority of children will engage in at least one unsupervised fire start. Generally, fires started by this kind of experimentation are unintentional. For most kids, this is where it ends. But for a troubled few, fire starting can then develop into fire setting. These are children, usually 7 to 10 years old, who understand the rules of fire but continue to light fires anyway, often in secret. These kids are likely to have trouble dealing with intense emotions. If ignored, this behaviour can lead to more serious problems.
If you're looking at kids lighting fires, that's usually because they've got something going on in their lives. It's often some kind of family dysfunction, it may be a family breakup, it may be other kind of conflict.
In the case of the Newcastle 11-year-old,
he'd been caught stealing, very antisocial behaviour. He was always in trouble, but we didn't know that anything like this could happen. We've been sort of trying to call out for help. There's very little out there.
If this situation involved an adult arsonist, the courts would be expected to throw the book at them. But can a child really be held accountable? And if not, then who is responsible?
Well, Steve Ellen heads up the consultation psychiatry unit at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne. Steve, what do you think? Should young kids be held accountable? I mean, what do you think is an appropriate punishment?
Well, I think they've got to be held accountable. You can't ignore behaviour like that. It's bad at every level. I mean, the most important people to hold them accountable are their parents. Obviously, if it's got to the stage where they've lit fires that have caused damage to the public or to people, you know, to the community in general, then it obviously becomes a bigger issue and it has to be dealt with by the police and courts as well as by parents and families and, you know, appropriate healthcare workers.
But if a child is found to be doing this because they've got a terrible life at home, is punishment on top of that really going to help them?
Well, this is always the issue with anything that kids do. There's so many factors. There's factors within the kids. Some kids are just born with problems, and then there's a whole lot of things that happen to them in their life that can make them behave badly. And so you can't do sort of a blanket one sort of size fits all for kids' behaviour problems. You've got to look what happened and then try and figure out what are the best approaches to address the particular problems that that kid has.
Steve, at what point does a child inclination to light fires, I guess, turn into something darker and lead to an adult arsonist?
Yeah, that's really interesting. You know, it's hard to know. All kids are interested in fire. They all do it from an early age. By about the age of 10, most kids experiment with fire, and they normally grow out of it soon after. But some kids don't, for various reasons. Sometimes it's because they've got some sort of emotional problem that is a sign of some, you know, deeper issue that's going on at home or bullying at school. So there's a whole lot of reasons why just normal curiosity could turn into dangerous fire setting.
A lot of people ringing into the radio today suggested things like taking these kids to a burns unit, maybe even traumatise them with having to look at the effect that some of these fires can cause. To a child, is that helpful, or is that more likely to be traumatic and make things worse?
Look, they're probably too young at about the age of 10. At my hospital, the Alfred Hospital, we have a program where kids come and look at the consequences of trauma and go to the burns unit and places like that. So those programs do work, but they're probably more for the 15, 16, 17-year-olds than the 10-year-olds.
All right, Steve, good to get your thoughts tonight. Thanks for your time.
Cheers, thank you.
And I think kids have got to be held accountable. Logical words, but if the community wants these kids to be held accountable, something has to be done. Help is out there, and I think it's up to the individual parents to make sure they recognise that in their fabulous little child.
It's heartbreaking times in New South Wales at the moment. Many charities supporting the fire appeals. If you live in New South Wales, make sure you pick up a copy of this Saturday's Daily Telegraph. A portion of each sale goes to the Salvos. They're doing amazing work to support emergency services guys and victims of the fires as well. Some more